here with the amazing Jacqui Johnson from Sankofa. If you don't know, this is a dope therapist. So you are in for an amazing experience. How are you, Miss Jacqui?
I'm good. I'm tired, but I'm good.
Oh,
Yo, listen, long weekends aren't always good because you come back and you got a lot of stuff happening. But I'm
hello.
good. I'm feeling well.
Hello. I'm so glad and grateful that you spent time with us. I know we're at the end of your workday. And when I say this is a dope therapist, even though she's busy, she always makes time to heal and educate and share information. So, people who do not know her, make sure you get your pen, piece of paper, because this is a dope therapist that everyone should know. She should be a household name. So, I wanted her to tell us some things about herself before we dive into the conversation. Tell us where Sankofa is at. Tell us about you.
Oh, where do we start? Okay, so Sankofa Healing Studio. I am in Philly. So Philly, and yeah, so it's a group nonprofit practice
Mhm.
where we center the Black community unapologetically. Like that's
Mhm.
just what we do. We
Unapologetically. Uh-huh.
Well, we center the Black community. All of our clinicians represent the community at all of the intersections, all the intersectionality of the Black community. So super dope, super proud of it. So for me, I'm an LPC. I do a few things. I identify as a somatic social justice art therapist plus.
Mm. I like that plus. I like that plus.
Because at the basis of everything that I do is art. That's who I am. So I'm a trained art therapist, and I am an art therapist through and through. But I sprinkle a little bit of everything in there. So I'm also a trained play therapist. I'm a hip hop therapist, so I believe in the power of the movement of hip hop and the power of all of the aspects that get
Mhm.
overlooked that are really dope pieces of therapy that no one talks about. This is our
Mm.
stuff. So really centering that everything that I do is based on the neuroscience, that mind body, really understanding the holistic, whole body, whole person approaches. And one of those ways, and a lot of folks know me from, is EMDR. I'm a co-creator of EMDR in color. That just really focuses on getting therapists of color trained up in EMDR, which has typically been a really white space, but really not only getting folks trained, but having folks understand our own cultural connection, right? And how it shows up organically. This is who we are and how we interact, mind, body, left, right, that whole thing. Neuroscience and all that. It's a whole big kind of words. And I'm like, yo, this is just some dope movement. And this is what our people do and how we've healed for generations. So I do that. I'm also a brain spotting consultant. So love brain spotting as well.
Me
But
too.
listen, I tell folks though, I am unapologetically not tied to any modality. I'm not
Mhm.
tied to any modality in any way, shape, or form. I go with where my spirit, where my soul goes, in conjunction to what my clients need. So I got a bunch of stuff in my toolbox,
Yeah.
but I don't prescribe to only do one thing. I also do a lot of parts work, shadow work. Um,
Mhm.
what that looks like. I'm a Reiki practitioner. So
Right.
I throw all the Reiki in there, and chakras are my thing. So chakras, looking at healing crystals. What else do I do? I have perinatal mental health certified. Um,
Mhm.
so really being able to support birthing folks in the Black community um, in all different stages of the process. Let me think. What else do I do? Oh, I'm a sound healer. I love sound. So a sound healer. I throw all of that in there.
Yes. And for those don't know, and this is what separates a regular clinician from a dope clinician. We are We are committed to the culture of healing, and that we're not married to any one modality. We're married to healing. And there's so many different roles. And I want to tell you about this system. We're going to get into this topic. That recently I got a call, maybe about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, saying, "Hey, Candice, the recent shooting that happened in Texas, the family is coming up to DC. And while they were there at the hotel, um, they witnessed the videotape of the shooting that happened with the children in the school. And these were the parents and family members who are witnessed for the first time. And they said, can you call people who are really good clinicians to come?" And I couldn't think of anyone, but I thought about Jacqui. And I said, I can't ask her. Let me just put it up in the universe. I put it on Facebook and other social media. And instantly this sister called me in the middle of the night and say, "Hey, I'm coming. I'm coming in the middle of my day. I'm going to stop things down, come with a crew." This woman did, if I'm saying correctly, sound bar therapy. Am I
Well,
saying
we just did sound healing.
sound healing?
Sound healing. Set it up, and we did some sound healing for folks.
And for those who don't understand what that is, she's going to get into that. But when I say this is a sister that cannot be played with, this is a healer, right? That we bow to. You are going to be amazed and enlightened, because sometimes people have this thing about clinicians, and they think that we're Dr. Phil, or we just a one pony show. Dope therapists, we are built different on purpose, because our people are built different on purpose. And when I say she healed people, not just BIPOC people, brown, indigenous, people of color, she healed people of different colors, different races, different ages, different genders. She came with the healing, because healing sometimes has no color. But we're coming here today to talk about the pain that's occurred within our communities of color, and talk about how it's connected to racism, systemic racism, because sometimes we don't know we're traumatized because we've been so indoctrinated that we don't know. And for those of you who follow me, her and I had this amazing conversation on Clubhouse. And at the end, I was like this, what? I was like, I got to invite this sister back, because everyone should hear this conversation. He even told my husband about it because I was so excited. So I want to begin with systemic racism. And I just want us to go old school, right? And for people who don't know, give them a definition of what systemic racism is and how it shows up, because sometimes we don't know what it is because we've been living it so long, and we don't realize that we've been exposed to it. So how do you define it, Miss Jacqui?
Wow. Anything that blocks us from feeling pure Black joy. Anything that gets in the way of that, which is a lot. The way that the system is built. I think a lot of people don't understand the history of even the field, right? The field of psychotherapy and all of that, of what that actually looks like. And it wasn't built for folks like us. It wasn't intended for us. And the thought was, well, what you upset for? You ain't got you own any property. You don't have no responsibilities. It's impossible for you to have any kind of mental struggles. And that's literally the way that that the system has approached us and continues to approach us. As wow, a definition. Let me tell you, Candice, we would take a few hours for that. But what I do say to folks is, anytime you feel yourself shifting, you feel another version of yourself showing up out of fear of not being accepted, out of fear of being hurt, out of any of those things, having to quiet your voice, right? Having to shrink your physique, all of those things, having to double check on, what does your hair look like? Is this going to be okay? All of those things are part of that systemic racism, whether you're at your job, you're at work, you're at in educational systems, if you're in the market, right? And we all know the kind. We go into the store, and they're following you. Right? That are you sure you hear you want you want me to take this to the counter for you? Right? So just all of those things.
And going to the market and always being aware where your hands are at, right? Are your hands in your pocket? Are your hands this way?
Listen, we all know that talk. That's not old school. You walk up and don't touch nothing. Don't touch nothing. Don't take nothing in there. Keep your hands visible. And it wasn't about our elders afraid that we were going to do something. They were afraid that the people who were
Mhm.
ignorant and the people who didn't see us as humans and didn't see us as worthy of taking up space, they were afraid that those people would find a reason to attack us, to harm us. And that's the ways that we have survived, right? Because it's
Mhm.
not about thriving. This are the ways that we survive in so many instances. We have to go to special schools. Like I was one of those during that era where you sent your black kid to a white Catholic school, so you got the good education and you could speak proper. You know, because that was the way, the only ways that people felt that you would be able to be different, that you would
Mhm.
be able to get out, right? We talk about getting
Yeah.
out of what? Out my hood? Why should I want to? But the reasons why are because we don't have the resources, we don't have some of those opportunities. All of
Absolutely.
that is systemic racism. Folks get it twisted. They want to talk about, well, black folks, they don't know how to act. Black folks are in pain from
Mhm.
generations of being stolen, of being raped, of being brutalized,
Mhm.
of being looked at and treated as inhumane, of not deserving.
Absolutely.
Um, so understanding where that deep seated pain is, and we don't just carry our experiences, we're carrying those experiences of our ancestors, and we're
Mm.
still in. And this is the thing what people don't want to talk about. We want to talk about epigenetics, right? You know, folks like, oh
Absolutely.
yeah, you know, we're thinking about ancestral trauma. Well, guess what? Some folks that are causing harm, that's because they still carrying their epigenetics, their,
Ooh.
right? And it's like sometimes when people say, well, listen, you know, I'm tired of you talking about black stuff, you know, that was so long ago. And I'm like, well, I need you to talk to your spirits because you're still showing up in the same ways. You know,
Say that part again. Say that part again because my fake hidden was covering my
listen,
ears. Hold on. Say that part again because people think that that's over. I live in Maryland, and I live in a community that when I moved here, I was the only person of color on my block. The whole block is now that. And we're in Maryland having an issue with E. coli water, contaminated water, but it's only in the black areas. It's only in the it's only in the areas that look like you and I, right? When I just came from Pasadena and I was there with my at my school, then I went to San Francisco, and I was like, it's funny, I haven't seen one McDonald's, one Burger King, one liquor store. Mm-mm. But if I go to the BIPOC, the red line areas that you know what those red line areas are, they're historically lined for people of color to be in there, and they devalued our housing areas. Um, they're not designed to make us thrive. They're designed to keep us enclosed. When I go to those areas, I can find a church on every corner, a liquor store in every corner, a Bell's by every corner, and I can find Burger King and McDonald's across the street from each other constantly.
yeah.
And I can find the school systems that aren't so great. But when I went to those other places, I was like, wow, look at all these private schools, look at all these charter schools, look at the test scores in this area. And that sometimes we don't realize how the systemic piece comes up, even how we name our children, right? Where we work at, where we don't work at, where the school systems are horrible and the prison systems are full. And we think that happens not by design, but that's part of the systemic piece. I'm getting fired up with you.
You ain't
Yeah.
even gotta get me started about the prison system because you know that's my love. That's where I go. That's where I was all day today. Wednesdays, you know, those are the days I'm in the jail. I'm working with incarcerated
Mm.
women all day long doing art therapy groups. And you know, there's a lot of pain, and what folks get a little confused, like here in Philly, you know, it's like, oh, these folks that are incarcerated. I'm like, yeah, but our city ain't no safer. So
Mm.
talk to me. Talk to me about who's doing what, right? Because our cities aren't, the streets are no safer. I got folks that I work with that may are in there maybe because of a $40, $50 cash bail. Like, come on, right? These
Mm.
are folks who are poor. And these are also people who the system has already failed. The
Mm.
mass majority, and when I say mass majority, I'm going to say 85, 90% and above have been in the foster care system that then sets them up for the juvenile justice system, which ain't that justice,
Mm.
to then go into the adult system.
Yeah.
These are folks who have been abused, neglected in all kinds of ways. And also, what's interesting, and I try to share with people to just kind of give context here in the Philadelphia jail. I don't know about other folks. I can only talk about my home and where I go. The average school attainment is 11th grade. That's horrible. However, it gets worse. The average grade attainment is 11th grade with a 4th grade reading level. That math ain't mathing. How are
Mhm.
folks only at a 4th grade reading level? That's not the children. That's coming from the systems.
They're coming from the system.
It's
So when
part
we
of the system.
so when we talk about systemic racism, is that one example of systemic racism? And
I
how
can
does
give
that
you one
show?
even. Listen, I can give you one even better. Right now, from the statistics and things that I've read, the fastest growing group is Black women of birthing age. Now, if folks know anything about history, if I own a Black woman's body around birthing age, I own her lineage, I own her culture, I
Mm,
own her people. So if I have you during that birthing age, right? So you're the primary caretaker and your little one, small, they're separated out. Where are they going? They're going into the system. The chances go through the roof of them continuing through the system at a later age. Mothers are giving birth while incarcerated and then being separated. So there's just so many things. And if folks haven't read that book, Slavery by Another Name, I'm going to need folks to wake up. We
yeah,
have to know what it is that we're working with, what we're dealing with in order to shine a light and heal it. There's
absolutely.
a lot of work that we need to do.
Yeah. As you were speaking about that, my mind went back all the way to slavery, where
Absolutely.
women were the most important property. Right? I was going to call it say cattle, but we were the most important property because we can birth all the way into our 40s, and every 2 years we can get pregnant. And men can be, they were good for physical labor, but once their body broke down, and they were good for mating. But the women were seen as the most important property because we had the birthing, then we can nurture not just our children, but the people who owned us children, and we can work the fields, right? So when you're talking about that, I'm like, wow, maybe that's what you said about epigenetics, that it's in our, changes our DNA and that we're built on survival because look what happened to the women. There's a history of us being separated from our children, us having to make sure that our children are safe by any means necessary. And that gets attached to our children.
Yeah, I mean, and it's no one, no one who looks like us is safe. So even if you have means, if you have money, it's really, yeah, it's it's uh, it's really tough. It's tough.
Mm.
There's a lot of pain that's there. But here's the deal, though. I will never talk about pain unless I talk about joy, because let me tell you something else that our ancestors gave us. Our ancestors have given us freedom,
Mm.
freedom to be us. Although folks ain't feeling it, but listen, you get the Black community together and put together some food and some community and some music. It's
Mm.
pure joy, right? When we are given the space to be
Yeah.
able to, just pure joy. We have that and we cannot let that go. The idea of being in community with one another, that's what keeps us going. That is what protects us. But it also, it doesn't do all of the healing, but it sure enough gives us a foundation to be able to connect with each other. And I strongly believe there is no individual healing without communal healing. End of story, period.
Absolutely. And I think that's why the Black church and the mosque, they've been so vital to our communities because there's something beautiful that happens when we come together as a people, whether it's at a barbecue or during a religious ceremony, because that's where our joy comes at. That's where that energy, right? We do that whole connection thing, that whole polyvagal ventral experience happens where we're in connection and attunement with each other. And that has helped us survive as a people, that sense of connection, to our joy.
Listen, and I'll also tell you, so when folks talk to me about EMDR, I'm like, yo, EMDR is dope with our flavor.
And for those who don't know, can you tell a little bit about what EMDR is, what brain spotting is?
Yes.
Tell us what EMDR is, because everyone doesn't know what it is.
Yeah, so EMDR, it's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So a whole bunch of fancy words. And basically what we're looking at is recreating that state of REM sleep. So if you ever saw someone that's sleeping and the eyes going back and forth,
Yeah.
that's a crucial, crucial time for our bodies. It's crucial when we're little. As infants, it's a lot of the growth happens during that REM sleep is super, super important. And as we get older, it allows us to kind of upload, download all of the experiences for the day and kind of categorize things and put them in their buckets.
Yeah.
Things that we don't need to hold on to that happened today, at night can get put away in the file cabinet, and become a memory. So where it allows some of that short-term memory to kind of transition over to more of the long-term memory. When that doesn't happen, which is what happens with trauma. With trauma, there's things that happen to us that are out of our control, and it disrupts our normal processing of experiences.
Absolutely.
What also happens is that we have these somatic components. So some of this heavy stuff, the sound, the sight, the smell, the feelings, the stuff in our bodies. So when I say somatic, I mean bodies. Like it's not like something just happened. Like we feel it in our bones, right?
Yeah.
All of those things happen. And in order for us to kind of release some of that somatic components, one of the things that we have done for ages is walking, running, drumming, right? Those drumming, healing circles,
Mm-hmm.
right? Marching, all of these things, dancing,
Mm-hmm. Stepping. Mm-hmm.
and all of those things,
Yeah.
double dutch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Twerking. So anything, really what it is, just kind of break down some of the science of it. Anything that has the left and right body parts moving. Because on one side with the right side, we got all the emotions and the memories, and all that stuff. Kind of the feeling things are all there. And on the other side, we have more of like the meaning making, right? The understanding of stuff. And with trauma, some of that, the connections between the sides get a little severed, so they're not working as well as they normally would. That REM sleep isn't happening the way it needs to happen. So many things are going on. So when we bring some of this body stuff in, what our body automatically naturally does, but we do it intentionally, it allows our body to be able to digest some of that stuff. So like my mentor, Dr. Ignacio Herrera, who we call Nacho in love, talks about what it is. It's like eating this big meal. And sometimes you eat these big meals and you can't digest it well, right? So get the upset stomach, all these things are happening to your
Mm-hmm.
system. The same thing happens with trauma. It's too much. We can't digest it. So what we do is we take these smaller bites, and that way we're able
Mm-hmm.
to
That
process
makes
it.
sense.
We can't change what's happened, but what we can do is allow the body to process it in such a way that it's manageable, that it doesn't control our every move. Because when things stay in short-term memory instead of long-term memory, that's where you got the triggers. So things are just happening and you're getting thrown back there like it's happening today. It's intense, it's unbearable, right? And that's when people look for other ways to cope, to kind of run from it, but they're running from their own bodies and they can't just run from that. So
Yeah.
it's kind of that. And with brain spotting, what we're looking at with brain spotting is where we look impacts how we feel, real short and simple. So
Mhm.
oftentimes, if someone asks you a question, you may go, like you have to go to remember something. You may look up or to the side, or you may look down. You may be thinking about things. And it's almost like you're going into that memory file cabinet to pull out just the right memory. But what we also notice with that, and everybody does it, we call it daydreaming,
Yeah.
right? But everyone does it. But what we can also do is notice that when there's really heavy material, things that just don't feel good, our eyes may go into a certain area.
Or we check out.
Yeah, and you check out, but you
Check
go in
out.
these spaces. And what we find is that sometimes, like say if whatever it is, and it's like, oh, I feel this tightness in my chest. If you look in a certain direction or in a certain spot, you feel it even more intense. So
Absolutely.
there's just this piece. It's all about somatics. It's all about the body. We talk
Mhm.
about, trauma lives in our bodies, but unfortunately, majority of the field overall continues to talk about it. If it lives in my body, what we doing?
And then they get frustrated sometimes with clients because when people have trauma, they freeze, right? If you can't escape that move, that desire to freeze, it's still in your to get away, it's still in your body. You're just frozen. And I love what you said about, you know, how trauma impacts the sleep. You know, we have those alpha waves that help us go to sleep, that help us relax. When you have trauma, it disrupts those waves. So people who have trauma will say, I didn't dream. I'm always tired. I'm always agitated because they're not getting rest. And I love the fact that you're saying, talking about how the body will help you have that rest, will help you unfreeze that movement that you couldn't complete. You couldn't run, you couldn't escape. And when
And
you,
the body has to let it out.
oh, it has to let it out,
And
right?
it's not about just saying the words. It's not just about repeating the story. Unfortunately, we have a misconception about that. Well, you got to talk about it. It makes you feel better. Maybe, maybe not. It can
Mm-hmm.
also re-traumatize you.
Yeah.
One thing that does feel better about talking, we're talking again about the body, is the vagus nerve. It's kind of that feelings highway through our body and
Yeah.
impacts our fight or flight and all of that stuff. Our just talking, and if people are talking and just put their fingers gently on their neck, they feel the vibration. That
Yeah.
actually vibrates that vagus nerve and stimulates it to tell our body, okay, y'all, we safe, right? All
Yeah.
those parts of our body, it's okay to take that breath,
Oh, I
right?
love
To be
that.
settled. Um, and it does make a difference.
Yeah. I think the last time we spoke, you had mentioned about the humming, about how
Yeah.
the humming, you know, I think you spoke about, Resma who spoke about it. Can you talk about the importance of that and how that impacts the polyvagal nerve?
Yeah. So again, when we're thinking about vibration and that just guttural hum, and listen
Mm,
to this, our elders knew about humming. They knew about humming. What we didn't understand is that they were way ahead of the scientific, studies and the books about the
bring
humming.
it. Mm-hmm.
But they were humming that
Yes.
deep hum that
Mm-hmm.
you feel it, right? You feel it by listening to it, but you also feel it by being connected. And there's also kind of this mirroring that happens and that co-regulation we talk about it. And what's that mean? Like, look, you just feeling the spirit, right?
Mm,
You feeling connected.
yes.
It doesn't matter what your spiritual orientation is, but that soul
Oh,
feeling, we feel it. And
yeah.
why? Because it is connected. Again, it is that highway of feelings in our bodies, and it's
Yeah.
able to tell the body it's okay. Because what folks don't understand is that we think about fight or flight, right? And oftentimes, we can throw around words and we don't break it down, for our clients and for our communities to really understand what's happening. Our body is programmed to keep us safe, right? So our feelers are always out there. Okay, is this cool? Is it not cool? Do I need to fight? Do I need to run? What do I need to do? As a Black community, we are in constant hypervigilance. We are in constant fear. That is what systemic racism does to us. We look on the news and our brothers, we see all of these injustices and we're terrified. Whether we speak it or not, our body feels it. We're connected to it. So, in the same way, you may look out your door, and hopefully you don't actually do this, but if you looked out your door and saw a tiger, you're like, whoa, immediately your body is going to tense up. You're going to feel stuff. And what's going to
Yeah.
happen is, our sympathetic nervous system shuts in. So what is that? Shuts on. It's that fight or flight, like that alarm is like, yo, okay, we got to get ready. But in order for our bodies to get ready to either run or to fight to survive, we also have to redirect some of our bodily functions, right? So
Mm,
the energy, if you were eating that sandwich and it's not digested, it takes a lot of energy. The body's diverting that. So we're going to take away some of the energy from there. So some of that digestion is going to slow down, right? Because we need to up the heartbeat, right? And pumping that blood and getting us ready. Our breath,
mhm.
all that stuff, the pupils, they need
Yeah.
to start dilating so we can see, we can pinpoint. The other thing is this prefrontal cortex, right? Big word, fancy word for just saying
Yeah.
like all of our thinking stuff, right? The making sense part of our brain, it kind of comes offline. And why? Because if I see a tiger, I don't want my brain, I don't want to be in my head like, Is that gold or are they brown? Are they 10 foot, 12
Yeah.
foot? We don't want to be doing all that academic stuff. So our body protects us. It says, shuts all that off. And we are completely in fight or flight mode. That's it. We got to survive.
Wow. So
Now, here's the
that's why
deal.
we don't have the appetite when we get in that mode where we're like, I'm
All
not
of us,
hungry.
we don't have to. All of that stuff right now, our energy is very focused. And once we're like, oh, that's not a tiger, that's somebody trick or treating or some stuff, right? Our body goes, whoo, right? And it's almost like, all of our department chairs within our bodies, like, all right, y'all, everything's cool.
Mm,
It's almost like in a job, right? When you have like a major thing, you divert and take your workforce to certain areas because these are the priorities. Our
yeah.
body has different departments and it diverts all of its workforce, sends everybody to wherever the priority area is in our bodies to keep us in survival. So now everybody got to, go back to their regular departments. Everything settles down. Everything begins to work again. What happens though for our people, if we're constantly, every time you turn around, having to fire up,
We never
our
rest.
bodies never go back down. So it's constantly going. We may feel like, oh no, I'm good, but our bodies aren't working well. So
Mm,
our hearts aren't doing what it needs to do. The blood pressure is a little different.
hypertension.
We're looking at diabetes. We're looking because the immune system, all of that's connected to also rest. When we're thinking about digestive system, having all kinds of digestive problems, and the list go on and on, but it's very, very much connected
Mm,
to our bodily systems. We don't even realize it because here's the thing. We're not opening the door and seeing a tiger. What we're doing is answering the phone. Is it a bill collector?
mm.
Is that new tiger now is that you
Donald
know
Trump. Oh, sorry about that.
listen, that person at our job,
Mhm.
sometimes the folks we got to work with, it's the
Yes.
system, it's the alarm clock, the
Yeah.
responsibilities, the expectations, all
Yeah.
of those things
Uh,
now are our tigers. So every time you turn around, turn it on the news and you
it's a
hear something happen and your heart stops. Is that one of my loved ones? Is it someone I know? Is it someone that looks like me? What is happening? All of that's happening in our
wow.
bodies.
Wow. It
And it's
what
important
comes for
to
me
know.
is it's like what happened with COVID and with generational trauma with George Floyd, right? COVID, it's not safe. And then you have George Floyd and then, Trayvon Martin. It's like, whoa, all these tigers. And I know for a lot of us, we tuned out. We couldn't watch it anymore because it's like, I'm not safe from this virus. I'm not safe from the police. I'm not safe from my community. I'm just not safe. And my kids are at home and they're not safe from failing schools. And I'm thinking about all these tigers. I know that for some people who couldn't fight flight, they shut down or they overate to try to numb out a little bit because it was too much for them. So,
Yeah.
what are some ways that we can deal with all of this so that the body doesn't give into dis-ease? Because when we stay tense, it creates dis-ease, which leads to disease. So, what are some things that you would recommend, Jacqui? That
Ooh.
would help calm the body down, bring the nervous system down to a place that
So,
you can function and
so
think.
I'm going to break it down super easy for folks. Everyone goes, I'm a therapist. So it's like, go to therapy. You know what? Yeah, maybe. Healing comes in all different forms.
Yeah.
So is that one way? Absolutely. Go find you a dope therapist, right? We are out here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then for folks who are in a different space in their healing journeys, I say go take yourself to the dollar store and get yourself a pack of bubbles. Regular bubbles.
Mm-hmm.
That is
Yeah.
my thing. I literally hand out bubbles to people in the community. And let me tell you why. Oftentimes you will hear folks saying, okay, you got to take a deep breath. And folks tell you, you got to meditate. Oftentimes those meditation voices don't sound like ours. They come up from
Mm-hmm.
other folks. And I don't know about y'all, but my body be like, That telling me to breathe and how to breathe doesn't always feel good, right? It's especially depending on where I am in my healing journey. For some people, it's amazing, but for others, it is actually a trigger. Now you're going to tell me how to breathe too?
Yeah.
However, if you hand somebody bubbles, number one, you can't even say bubbles without smiling,
Look at
right?
that.
You take out them bubbles, and I don't know if folks are as competitive as I am. I want to make the big bubbles, right? In order to do that, you got to take that nice deep breath in and then
Mm-hmm.
you blow slowly in
Yeah.
order to have that bubble get big,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we can do this with adults. Adults could do it with the kids. It could be everyone. It's just
Yeah.
literally blowing bubbles and sometimes being able to just take that breath and inhaling what feels good and exhaling what just doesn't serve your body anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and blow them away. So those, it's like super practical, right? Whatever brings you joy. So guess what? If playing cards brings you joy, get your people together and play cards, right?
Connection.
Be it in community, not
Yeah.
isolating, right?
Mhm.
Me, listen, I'm a Philly girl, all about the double dutch. Let's go double dutch squad, right? And all of those things, music, turn that music on, turn it all the way
Mhm.
up. People will say dance like nobody's watching. Nah, I want you to dance like everybody's watching because it's
Mhm.
your show. This is you. You
Yeah.
are the star. And feeling that, feel it in your body, right? Let your posture feel that. It does not change what has happened to us. It does not change the people that we live around and some of the ignorance, and lies they say about our people. But what it does do is allow us to connect to who we are. Because in order to remember who we are, we got to forget what they
Mm.
told us.
Mm. Preach
And
it.
we've got to get to that. Whatever it is that brought you joy, think back to childhood, right? Because adults, we got all this stuff we got to do and responsibilities. I'm a play therapist and I work specifically with play therapy with adults.
Yeah.
Go back. What brought you joy? Was it the Cabbage Patch dolls?
Mhm.
Was it Play Doh? Was it jumping in the puddles? Do it.
Yeah.
Do the things that bring you joy without having to second guess yourself about what's appropriate or accepted.
I
Just
love
do.
it. It's connecting back to you, right?
Just
Trauma
do.
disconnects us from our essence, disconnects us from our people because when bad things happen, normally when we're alone, and you're talking about connecting back to people who make you feel safe and connecting back to you, the child part of you that loved freedom and play, right? And that creates that goes from fight flight to rest and digest. I think that's awesome,
So
sister.
many times you hear people say that, right? They say, like, oh, I remember back when things were simple. Right? Feel that. Feel all of it.
Oh,
Celebrate it.
absolutely, I love it, sister. How can people find you? How can they find you? How can they hear your wisdom? How can they reach you? And for those who don't have a pen and piece of paper, get your phone out, type this down so you can find this queen. How can they find you?
So it's Sankofa. And for those that don't know what that is or how to spell it, it's S as in Sam, A-N as in Nancy, Kofa. This is an Adinkra from the Akan people of Ghana, my lineage. I've done some stuff and found out that's my home. So really looking at the Adinkra symbol of Sankofa, and the meaning of is it don't be afraid to go back and get what was
Mm.
forgotten, what was lost. So that means we got to go back there to those times that we were hurt, that something happened to us, and we've got to heal it. And we
Mm.
don't have to do it by ourselves, right? So
Yeah.
that idea of being able to go back, reclaim our past, because that then protects our future. And it also shifts our present condition. We show up in different versions of ourselves. We get to choose who and how we want to be, by doing that, by releasing some of that stuff that has us anchored down. So that's the little background about Sankofa. So it's Sankofa Healing Studio, not psychotherapy practice and sessions and all that stuff, because our whole space is not sessions, right? So it's a healing studio. So we got all kinds of stuff. So SankofaHealingStudio.org. If you're on Instagram, IG, sometimes, I be in my feelings and I say some stuff because I'm straight activist before therapist. Make no mistake. I'm activist, artivist before I'm a therapist.
Absolutely.
So IG is Sankofa Healing Studio, same for Facebook. If you are a clinician, if you are a therapist of color, hey, y'all, please hear me clear. A therapist of color, a non-white therapist of color. You'd be surprised. I have to repeat it. If so, you are a non-white therapist of color and you are interested in EMDR, listen, got a Facebook group. It's called EMDR and Brain Spotting in Color.
I'm on it. I'm on it.
Yes, check it out. We really talk about some dope stuff, and we talk about how do we do stuff for our culture, what that can look like. So yeah, so everything that you need to find, if you forgot any of that, everything is on sankofahealingstudio.org. Again,
Yes.
we are a nonprofit.
Wait a minute, and you have a training coming up, right?
I do. So I have a training. So for those of you who are already trained in EMDR, and you are a therapist of color, because this is going to be an affinity space for therapists of color only. If you're like, yo, I like this EMDR thing, but there's something more, you're right, there is. I have an advanced training coming up October 28th and 29th. It's a 2-day training. And it's looking at Dr. Nacho's protocols. It is very specific. This is for looking at rapid response, looking at ongoing traumatic stress, looking at all of that. So when we're talking about racial trauma, anything that has to do with grief, any of long-term cancers and other, medical things, ongoing traumatic stress, basic EMDR can be tweaked, but it's not enough. I'll be teaching you how to do the assist protocol, Dr. Herrera's assist protocol, which is really like a 911 for the limbic system. So oftentimes looking at a stepped care approach, our clients come in and what happens is they're completely dysregulated and we say, oh, they're not ready for EMDR. Listen to me, y'all, that ain't true. We can use the assist protocol, then specifically focuses on the somatic pieces of that memory that's able to bring a person's body down just enough so that they can do all this other healing work. So it's a stepped care model that Dr. Herrera has created. That is what I'm teaching. And, I'm doing it with some flair. We're doing it in the Jacqui style. So I'm just saying.
Hello. And now she a little flavor of Jacqui style. So for
Right?
those of you who are clinicians, check her out. She's amazing. For those of you who are looking for a clinician, check her out. She's amazing. If you're looking for a clinician in another state, check out my, BIPOC provider directory. It's called Color of Trauma and Healing. I'm Candice Dickens. This was my amazing friend, Jacqui Johnson. And you can find me on my personal website, which is CandiceRDickens.com. Thank you, ma'am. I so appreciate you.
Oh, I am so honored to have been invited. Thank you, thank you, thank you for holding space with me.
You're welcome. Take care, and everyone, good night.
Have a good night.